Good evening, everyone. In accordance with Section 5 of the Open Public Meetings Act, be advised that a notice of this meeting was made by posting on the bulletin board in Town Hall and forwarding to the officially designated newspapers that this meeting would take place at Town Hall at 7 p.m. on Tuesday, March 4th, 2025. Meeting details and the draft agenda were also posted on our Township website. Please stand to salute the flag.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call vote, please.
Deputy Mayor Cohen.
Here.
Mr. Cosgrove.
Here.
Mr. Sacramenti.
Here.
Mr. Stoller.
Present.
Mayor Romano.
Here. May I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor? May I have a motion to approve the February 4th, 2025 Township Committee minutes?
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
May I have a motion to approve the February 4th, 2025 Special Township Committee minutes?
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, reports. Who wants to start? Committee and Sacramento, would you like to start?
Sure. The Citizens Affordable Housing Advisory Committee had a public meeting. We had Jared, there's our municipal attorney, with Graham Petto as our planner, various members of the public. Everyone was allowed to ask questions, and information was provided. We'll be having more of these sessions, but overall, it seems to have been well received. There is a planning board meeting tomorrow. I would venture to guess, but don't hold me to this. There's probably going to be tomorrow's meeting and maybe one more on the High Center, but that always depends on how the evening goes. So if you're a member of the public and you wish to testify, you may want to attend the meeting tomorrow or follow up. That's it.
Thank you. Committeeman Cosgrove?
Yes, just a quick report on the Historic Preservation Commission. They had been without a board secretary, but that was resolved as of today, so things are moving forward. I think their next meeting is going to be April. Thank you.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Carr?
Real quick, the planning board's been covered. The library, the second floor renovation is now underway. The library will remain open for almost the entire thing. There may be a couple of days here or there, but for the most part, the library will remain open. And the Arboretum is holding a sushi and sake tasting event on April 3rd. If you would like to attend, you can sign up on the website.
Thank you. Committeeman Stoller?
Sure. No updates on the rec committee, special improvement district. M&T Bank has partnered with Explore Millburn to host two financial guidance sessions. One's Friday, March 14th. The other one's Friday, March 25th. You have to register through a Zoom link on their website. BOE, no updates there. Joint Fields, no updates. Mountain Valley Emergency Communications Center, the board, we met last Wednesday. The board will increase its meeting cadence every month during 2025 to continue discussions about the future location and structure of the center. In the meantime, we actually entered into a 10-year lease with New Providence to continue occupying the current space. We can cancel it with 6 months notice, so we're fine there. Flood mitigation, we'll meet next Wednesday. A lot of positive momentum with this group. We continue to advance all the objectives of the committee. A reminder that residents, we have our own webpage now that you guys can go to on twp.millburn.nj.us. On tonight's agenda is actually the Princeton Hydro. We contract with Princeton Hydro to evaluate the feasibility of upstream improvements on the Van Winkle Brook, which flows through the Arboretum and Glenwood section of the township to mitigate capacity issues. And we have secured the final easement for the Ridgewood Greenwood drainage project. There was one holdout, one last one we actually received. It's a great job, Alex, on that. And then affordable housing, I'll defer to council. Thank you.
Mr. McDonald?
Yes, last week we had
a discussion on the Taylor Park Gateway on Wednesday, the 26th. It was a good discussion, a lot of good input from the public. We plan on, that information is up on the township's website. We actually have a section of the township website called projects that residents can go and view, things that are current projects that we have plans for. We are putting up in that section, particularly road reconstruction or the Taylor Park Gateway is there as well. So we just encourage residents to go take a look at the current plans as well as the video from the public discussion. And I would like to bring that before the Township Committee on the 18th of March. Just a reminder about Memorial Day, May 26th at 11 a.m. We have finalized the application for this year, so that will be going out to the parade committee, and then anybody that's interested in participating can get that form. It's just a Google form that you fill out and return to us. And then just a brief update on town hall renovation. Because funny, this had come up at the zoning board meeting last night. Now we have all of these signs around the town hall saying that we are moving. And we project to move on April 18th. That is our goal. That is 46 days away. Not that I'm counting, but just just want everybody to keep that in mind. There will be a few days, particularly I think the week of spring break and the week of that move, that we do close town hall just to help facilitate that move. But that will be communicated as well. And just wanted to let the public know, April 18th, we plan on being at 22 East Willow, which will be our temporary space while this is renovated.
Thank you. Mr. Cantor.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a brief update on fair share housing. We filed our fourth round resolution and in which we reduced, DCA found a need of 555 units. The township reduced its number to 522. We passed a resolution here. The township filed a declaratory judgment action on January 22nd. Pursuant to the fourth round rules, any objector had until February 28th to file an objection to that number. And I'll just go through, there were 440 resolutions passed in the state going into the fourth, accepting the fourth round obligations. Out of the 440 municipalities that filed, 282 accepted DCA's number, 158 challenged DCA's number. An entity called Jersey Builders Association filed an omnibus objection to all 158 municipalities that reduced their number. We don't think that this challenge meets the statutory requirement. The statutory requirement states that as Milburn had to justify why we reduced from 555 to 522 with specificity and particularity, we identified properties that DCA identified as developable, which we did not believe were developable. This objector did not do that. This objector simply stated that DCA's calculations were correct and that the municipalities should follow DCA's calculations. I've been directed by this governing body to file basically an objection to their objection. We also are questioning how obviously a group of developers can fulfill a need, but we're unclear on what their interest is on the actual need itself, other than to make more money and have more units in the state. So the township will be filing something in response to that. I am happy to report, though, that Fair Share Housing Corporation filed objections. They filed 60 objections. They did not object to the township's reduction from 555 to 522. And I think this governing body and the hard work of obviously Mr. McDonald and Topology went a long way to not being challenged by Fair Share Housing Corporation. So all objections were due by February 28th, so we don't perceive any further objections. There is a case management conference scheduled next Tuesday at 9 a.m. in person, and that is to discuss, there's an open issue regarding RPM, the developer of the 9 Main Street project, filed a 5-day order ordering the court to enforce a pilot agreement, which was unnegotiated and still had blanks. We've hired McManaman Scotland Bauman as co-counsel on the 9 Main Street and specifically to finish up our third round obligations. McManus and Scotland Bauman filed opposition. Those of you who have read it, I think they did a really good job. And that will be not decided in court on Tuesday, although it may be, but it certainly will be discussed on Tuesday in court as how to proceed on that. If there's no further questions from this committee, I have nothing further.
Thank you. Okay, public comment. When invited to speak to offer your comments, please come to the lectern and clearly state your name and whether you are a Milburn resident and or property or business owner. Please do not provide your full address, seeing our meetings are recorded and readily available to the public. For the convenience of our community, there is a remote option. If you called in and would like to comment, please press *6 now. If you are attending by computer or electronic device, please click the raise hand button and be sure your video is on when you comment. All members of the public wishing to speak will be put into the queue to address the committee. To help facilitate an orderly meeting and to permit all to be heard, speakers shall limit their comments to 1 3-minute session. You will be prompted when there's 30 seconds remaining. A reminder, this is not a time for dialogue or to debate a matter. This is a time during our business meeting for the public to offer comments. I will now open public comment.
Hi, everybody. Good evening. Good evening. My name is Preeti Sharma. I am a new resident of Melbourne. I moved here about 2 years ago. I love this beautiful town, and what I can see is people who live here and the committee work really hard to keep it that way. One thing I want to provide feedback today is on the gas-powered leaf blowers. Those are a nuisance because of mainly of the noise that they contribute and compounded by my dog barking at the landscaper. So I'm really hoping this committee will do something about it to bring the noise pollution down so I can sleep in on Sundays. Thank you. Thank you.
Hi everybody, I'm Radhika. I'm Dr. Radhika Iyengar, a resident of Wyoming section in Melbourne. Research on sustainable development and environment practice is my day job. I am the Director of Education at the Center for Sustainable Development at the Climate School at Columbia University, and I teach climate topics at SIPA, School of International and Public Affairs at Columbia University. So when this discussion on restricting gas-powered leaf blowers came up, I was extremely thrilled that Melbourne will be taking on an environmental action that will help to reduce environmental damage. And as Preeti pointed out, it will help us to sleep more, there'll be less noise, and I can enjoy a beautiful walk in my neighborhood Sunday mornings without getting disturbed by this machine roaring in my ears. There will also be a lot of health benefits by stopping these gas-powered blowers. More than 100 towns and cities have banned the gas leaf blowers. Therefore, for the sake of people's mental well-being, health, and for the environment, we must reflect on our actions and restrict the use of gas-powered leaf blowers in town. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Sarah Jelen. I'm a 10-year resident of Milburn. I also want to speak in favor of this ordinance. I understand it's limited in time, where it's just for the summer months and the winter months for now, and that's all we want to address. For the other seasons, when leaves are abundant in our town, they are not asking to restrict gas powered. But yeah, we all love the summer. The summer is, we look forward to it all year. It's such a short period of time, and then we're out and we can't enjoy the outside. We can't enjoy beautiful Milburn because you're on your bike and the leaves are blowing in your face, or you're sitting outside trying to read the paper on the rare summer mornings that you get to do that, and you're disturbed by the pollution. It's well documented, the environmental impact, and it's right in the ordinance, in the whereas clause that I'm sure you guys will see. There are some statistics that are pretty riveting. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Phil Kirsch, Melbourne resident. I realize that if it passes tonight on first reading, there will be a public hearing on ordinance 2700-25, an ordinance prohibiting political party chairs from serving as chairs on municipal committees at the next meeting. But I wanted to comment on that issue before the vote. This ordinance would seem harmless. Who could in good conscience oppose it, you might say? Except that I question the considerations that have brought it forward. Certainly in the many years I have lived here when a different party controlled municipal government, I have sometimes doubted their policies, even their judgment, but I did not use my disagreement as a lever to charge them with prejudice. Very much against the contentions of some, I object to the creation of a perception of prejudice that then becomes the reason to create an ordinance, which then historically will imply that there was prejudice. For this reason, and because such an ordinance is unnecessary, if I were on the committee, I would vote against passage tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Jeffrey Feld. I live in the poet section. General comment. We do the agenda. Can we maybe disclose the amount of certain, like what's the amount of the bill list, like what some amounts of the contracts, because the public really has to go into the heart of the agenda packet to understand the amount of monies that are being done. For example, on the bill list, there's an issue is how much money has Mr. Cantor been paid for services performed in calendar year 2024? Because on the bill list, there's an excess of two bills in excess of $80,000. If you add it to the 420 that was on the chart, we paid Mr. Cantor, I think, in excess of $500,000 for work. And the question is, what did he do and who's been watching the quality of the work has been done? As to the ordinance that was just discussed about Mr. Kirsch, look at the caption. The caption does not agree with the body of the ordinance, because the caption implies that if you're the party chair, you can't serve on any committee. That is not the intent. Specifically, you cannot be the chair of a committee. And I think that we should just correct that. And also you should clarify, if this ordinance is adopted, is the current party chair, who's the SID chair, grandfather, or does the ordinance automatically apply to her as of this year, and that she would have to be replaced as the chair? I think the public needs to know what your intent is as to that. As at 22 East Willow Court, the furniture purchase, what's the source of the funding? Because when you look at the ordinance that it refers to the bond ordinance that was for the acquisition of 22 East Willow Court. I don't believe the bond ordinance provided that could be used for furniture. I think that would have been used maybe in the project when you did the bond ordinance for the renovation of Town Hall. In addition, like when we were talking about Taylor Park last week, once the construction starts on Town Hall, will that impact the Town Hall closure that was used by the SID during the summer? Because of the construction materials, I mean, things that could come out, is it a safety concern, or have we looked at that, or are we gonna have to relocate that activity? I'm very happy about the ground floor, that the Fair Share Housing Center did not object to us, but there's been a series of articles that came out today about Gothamus, and that we really have a constitutional issue here, is whether the courts, because Gothamus and the Fair Share Housing Center group want the judges to determine and reallocate the locations, and I don't think they have the constitutional power to do that. Thank you. I'll speak later on other issues.
Hello, good evening. Andrew Becker Enterprises. I'm here to talk about the leaf blower, the possible leaf blower ban. It has a lot of people talking about it. It's brought to a lot of people's attention. The people in the landscape industry are service professionals. We work in a very vast and expansive town. We have a lot of little properties and large properties. We take our responsibilities very serious. Our properties are uniquely landscaped. Some are as small as a ½ acre, up to 5, 7, and 10 acre properties. We try to provide a high level of service and integrity to our clients. We provide a lot of curb appeal in the community. We work hand in hand with the fall cleanup with the Department of Public Works by making these piles very contained, organized, so their leaf collection is very easily done. If we don't have the power tools and the proper blowers to do this, we will not be able to clean the streets to an efficient level where they will be able to pick up the leaves, and they will then have to provide more labor to pick up the fall cleanup in the community. If that's possible, you may have a situation where you have violations of the Clean Water Drinking Act. We all were able to come together and make these leaf piles with the zones. If we don't have the power tools to do it, you may have very long piles that will be hard to collect. With heavy rains, you will have the leaf tea and the runoff going into the catch basins. As landscapers, we clean the catch basins after heavy storms. We're very considerate and have a lot of what we call leaf blower etiquette. When the community walks by, when the girls are walking their dogs, my men turn the blowers off. Everyone waves, smiles. We read into the fact that these blowers may be an issue with people, but we try to be respectful in the community and we try to do the right thing. If we're going to ban the leaf blowers, what are we going to ban next? Are we going to ban the gas weed whacker, the gas hedge trimmer? Are we going to ban the chainsaw? I mean, how are we going to keep this community clean with some of the largest property taxes in the state and the most valuable properties in the state? Maybe there should be some kind of list of rules for the landscapers. Maybe the township committee could create, or the Department of Public Works, some rules, some regulations. I've never seen rules or regulations. All I've heard is ban the leaf blowers. They want us to use lithium battery leaf blowers. They're illegal in New York City. We're going to need generators that are going to create more pollution than the leaf blowers do. These generators will run from the minute we start work until the end of the day. And then we're going to store these batteries in our garages. We're going to have the same type of thing as we have in New York with the lithium batteries. Thank you very much for your time.
Good evening. My name is Robert Sachi, owner of Discovery Landscaping, been working in Milburn for the last 30 years. As a business owner and professional landscaper in the town, I strongly oppose this gas blower ban. Our work relies heavily on these tools to maintain the beauty and cleanliness of our clients' property efficiently. They're essential for handling large debris and heavy debris during our peak seasons and even off-peak seasons. I mean, leaves fall, then spring cleanup happens, and then the pollen falls, the flowers fall, all of the trees, which all need to be cleaned up. Switching to electric blowers is just not a viable option right now. The technology is not there. It's not strong enough to do what we needed to do as a business owner and cleaning our customers. This is also going to increase costs, operational costs, and excuse me, it's going to increase operational costs for our customers, leading to higher prices for our landscapers. Again, what Andy said, in one of the highest tax towns in the state. Additionally, recharging electric blowers require gas generators on site, which negate any environmental benefits of switching to these electric tools. I hope you guys would consider alternative measures without a complete ban, which it sounds like you guys are, which is, you know, beneficial, but hopefully we can work together and find a more balanced solution that's going to help us all. Thank you.
Good evening, Diane Eglow, long-term resident. I was at the Taylor Park Gateway presentation and it's amazing. It will do so much to clean up Milburn Avenue, and I really hope that there's support from the township committee people with the wheels, because I think it adds the history of the town. About the gas-powered leaf blowers, we have an electric leaf blower that we just use on our deck. It has a very high-pitched noise, worse than a gas blower. I do remind people when I speak that I did sit up there for 6 years, and I remember I said the town should set the example. The town should be the first one. I don't think the town has switched to electric blowers. Have they? Yes.
Not for leaf collection.
Right. So maybe there's a reason. You said the property was too big, the parks. Well, some people have very big properties in Short Hills. If you put enough houses together in South Mountain section where I live, that's a big piece of property. I think if you're gonna do something, I think there are mufflers available for gas-powered leaf blowers. There can be something besides banning it, which I don't personally see as a solution. And I speak for the landscapers who are here, I see tonight. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Nick Santagata. I live here in town as well. I'm a landscaper. And today I visited PMP lawnmowers in Morristown, in Maplewood. And he services all our lawnmowers, 90% of people around town and that work in the vicinity. And he told me the technology is just not there. It's not there. So I want to do what's right for my customers. I would go with electric. I'm all about getting a Tesla and everything, but when he is there and he's telling me that the technology is not there, for me, I have to do what's right for my customers and their properties need to be cleaned well. So I would, it's gonna be very tough for us to clean these properties that well when the technology is not there. That's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Charles Bambara, 28-year resident of Milburn Township. I respect the Environmental Commission. I've attended their meetings. I think highly of all of them. I have advised them personally based on my 50+ years of engineering experience. I know the technology, I know the engineering. I've pointed out that there are gas-powered blowers that have a noise output that is as quiet as human speech. I could go online and I can buy one of them and have it delivered tomorrow. The landscapers feel that they can use those as well over time, given time to transition. I'm asking you, before you cast a vote on this issue, understand the technology, understand the alternatives, do the research for yourself and don't just read propaganda and hype. Look at, Google low noise gas-powered leaf blowers, and you'll find a whole bunch of them that are for sale. Manufacturers of these devices don't want to go out of business tomorrow. They've invested millions of dollars in R&D programs over the last 5+ years to develop these current models that are available that meet noise standards and are as quiet as the residents have asked for that are advocating for the ban. So if anything, modify the noise ordinance in town to include leaf blowers or any other garden tools you may want, but make it a noise standard. That makes sense because the complaint is noise. And if you're talking about pollution, the new models have low pollution also. They have stratified charge fuel injection, so they're much cleaner burning. Don't look at tools that were made or studies that were done comparing to a pickup truck that were done in 2011. That's 15 years ago. The technology's changed. Please do the research yourselves, educate yourselves before you cast your vote. Because I can tell you from an engineering standpoint, I'm environmentally responsible also. A lot of the work I do is in that line, but this is unnecessary. That's my professional advice to you. Thank you.
Hi, Jay Morielli, resident. I'd like to start by thanking all the TC members for their service to the community. 2 questions tonight. First, regarding the open space tax, which I wholeheartedly support. But with that said, the ordinance as written seems to be open-ended. If I'm reading it correctly, there's no max amount that can be accumulated in the fund. There is no end date. And basically this tax goes on forever. I would suggest that we put a sunset date on this, say 5 years, so that after a period of time, we can look back and judge the success of this and make a decision on whether or not it's worth continuing. If it's successful, as we all hope it will be, renewing it will not be contentious. If it's not achieving its goals for whatever reason, it can be abandoned. The second topic has to do with the new business topic of zoning review topics. I've spoken with several TC members over the past 6 months regarding ordinance 2577-21, which made restaurants a conditional use within 125 feet of residential properties. I think 4 years on from the passage of this COVID era ordinance, it would make sense for the Zoning Code Examination Advisory Committee to see if any changes should be made to this ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, good evening, everyone. How are you? My name is Luigi Santagata. I'm gonna try to represent 3 generations of landscaping in this town between the Santagatas and the Bianco family. My grandfather, Luigi Santagata, has been a landscaper in this town for since, well, he died 95 years old, so, and he's been a landscaper in this town for all these years. So we're 3rd generation, so it's me and my brother and I, my dad, and my grandfathers. So what I would like to say is I'm representing about 250 customers in Short Hills. My brother is probably representing another 300 customers in Short Hills, the Biancos and the Discovery. So it's quite a few thousand customers. And I spoke to a lot of my customers and told them that, you know, with these changes, that the property, it's gonna cost a lot more to get the property looking the way it should. I figured it's a 30 to 40% increase on customers that are already paying ridiculous taxes in town. I mean, you know, I'm talking 40 years back now. So I don't know what your plans are, but you know, Milburn Short Hills is like Summit. Summit tried that this whatever you guys plan on doing with these batteries, they don't work. The batteries last 10 minutes. Nothing can get done. I really don't want to do this, but I mean, Summit tried it. It didn't work. They shut it down, 1, 2, 3. And I have friends of mine that work for the Township of Summit, and it got shot down like that. So, you know, please think about, you know, and now, you know, with I know it's a noise ordinance, but none of our customers complain about noise. We're there, the blowers are there 3, 4 minutes blowing. This is during the season, not in the spring and fall, but during the season, 5 minutes. Oh, sorry. But, and, you know, I just feel like, you know, and it's gonna put a lot of hardship on us, because now we have to re-gear everything. And, you know, they're pristine properties. I mean, my customers, like, right there, Kenny Bandelbaum, right there. So, you know, please.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, we are not voting on it on tonight's meeting, but it's still in discussion, and we'll let you know if we ever get to that point, but we're not acting on that tonight.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right.
Hi, my name is Sebastian Bianco. I've been in the business for 1972. I live in Melbourne. Like I say, I talking, I've been going a lot of meetings, get this going on, because this is other towns that already they have this problem. So I have a friend of mine, is my age, has been in the business as long as I am, and he lives in Montclair. He works in Montclair, and he had to go out and buy $24,000 blow, all electrical blow, because this is not lasting. Now he says, I can't take it anymore, because it only needs a guy just to keep charging the battery, and it's not enough electricity that you have with you, unless you put a trailer that it's got all all the right equipment to do, but still the battery is a 10 minutes lasting. And he's thinking about it, he says, if it wasn't for my kids, I would go out of the business. I would leave the business because I says, there's no way I could make it. That's all I have to say. Just take a consideration for other people too.
Thank you. Janet Pizar. In reference to the gateway to the Taylor Park project, anybody who sees the rendition, I think, will form an opinion. And everybody's opinion is welcome and everybody's entitled to their opinion, and every opinion is also very subjective. What I would like to suggest is to solicit input from the Arts Council in Milburn Township. Just because artistic-minded people are very much tuned into aesthetics, proportion, balance, congruity. And I think it would be very, very helpful to get some input from them. I'm pleased with the project. I'd like to see it go forward, but I'd like to see some tweaks. And I think that the input from the Arts Council can give us the best objective reasoning behind the project. Thank you. Thank you.
So I think we're gonna go online real quick.
Okay.
Good evening.
Good evening. Hi, my name is Neeta Ramanathan, and I have been a Melbourne resident for about 7 years now. I wanted to actually talk about the ordinance on the gas leaf blowers. I do support it, and I'll tell you why. As an asthma patient myself, I actually started working with our landscaper about 2 years ago on whether there is a viable option to limit the use of gas blowers. And I can tell you a few things that we've done as a family to make this work. I fully understand that there are challenges with the electric technology right now. The batteries just don't last enough. They're heavier, so it's harder for the landscapers to carry them as backpacks, which is what they do with the gas blowers. So I totally get that it's not easy. It's not an easy transition. But what we've done in the last 2 years successfully with our landscaper is 3 things. One, he started bringing a battery blower for the lighter months, not the fall months, where he just does our deck and a few concrete areas. We let the leaves be on the grassy areas. It doesn't bother us. It's not affected the looks of our property. So that's one. 2, we've just, we let him use the gas blower in the fall months because there is no option right now. And we just do it less number of times, but it works totally fine. And 3rd, we keep an electric blower, which is a corded one, and we use it whenever, like there are off times when we want something cleaned up and it's not what we want looking. And it's worked really well. So I just wanted to share that experience with all of you. This doesn't need to come at the cost of any landscaper or any business, and it doesn't have to come at the cost of the looks of our yards or our properties. Thank you.
Thank you.
We have 4 more.
Oh, go ahead, Bill.
I don't mind if you.
All right, let's finish then.
Yeah.
Shut up, probably waited. Good evening.
Okay. Hi, everybody. Well, good evening. I'll be brief. I'm Fran Denmark Feld, longtime Milburn resident. I am going to just want to thank the Township Committee for engaging with the firm, the architectural firm that they chose to work on the Gateway project. I was there last week along with Diane, Frank, and a bunch of other people. I wanted to see what came up this time. And I was so pleasantly surprised at this new project. Unlike the first go-round, which looked like a bad version of Disney World, we have a real dignified plan now, put together by real architects who seem to know what they're doing. And I was just thrilled with the plans. Maybe they'll tweak them. It's okay. It's not perfectly the way I would want it if I designed it, but I'm not a designer. So I want to thank the Township Committee tonight for taking the extra time to find another firm who wanted to design something that's worthy of our town, that looks like a gateway, not a joke. And on top of that, the price that the estimate they gave for the work was well within what it should be. I asked my husband, I don't know if you know, my husband is an architect. He's been an architect for over 40 years. He looked at it and he guessed a price higher than the estimate from this company. So altogether right now, again, I just want to give credit where credit was due. Thank you, Township Committee. I'm very happy.
Thank you. Good evening.
Hi, good evening. Jean Pasternak, resident. I just wanted to comment on a couple of things. I really liked what Jay Moriali had to say about the open space tax ordinance. I think those guardrails that he suggested are really important and would be a positive addition. I also think that his comments on the new business topic about zoning were also really good, and I agree with them. I also wanted to talk about ordinance 2700-25. I agree that the title of the ordinance and the body of the language in the ordinance don't seem to match. As the chair of the Republican committee in town, I am 100% behind this. I think it's absolutely appropriate, and I'm glad to see that it's come to this, to this fruition. I also wanted to mention the Gateway project. I liked what Diane said regarding the history and how important Taylor Park is to the town, and also Janet's comments, about involving the Arts Committee. I'd also like to ask, would the Historic Preservation Committee be an appropriate group to ask for their comments and review, given its connection to and such a strong connection to the history of the town? Maybe they have, I don't know, but I'm just asking since the two before me had mentioned those 2 points. One other thing, I guess, the rooftop decks and the new business topic. I know this was a very contentious topic when it came up a couple of years ago, I guess, or maybe now it's 3. My feeling is that once you open the topic, it's going to be difficult to limit where and when these rooftop decks might appear. So I just, as a resident, with a lot of the new building going on in town and developments, I think that this is not the greatest idea. And I'm hoping that there's a robust discussion about it. And then finally, I guess one thing that strikes me listening to everybody about the leaf blowers, there's been so much work done, I know, by the commission and also the environmental commission and also by others who seem to have a lot of information that they want to bring forward. Is there any way that we could do more educational outreach and also just make sure that all these ideas are clearly heard and that people really understand the issues? Because I feel at this point confused. I will admit that. I think that's it. Oh, one last thing, if I have time. Really think that it's critical, given all the spending that's being put forward, that there gets to be a long-term plan. And I'd like to ask Alex if he could get on the calendar, since he said it'd be ready.
you.
Oh, sorry. Thank
Thank
you.
Good evening. Can you put your
Yeah, sorry, it was a bit slow. So, hi, Caroline Germa, 11 years in Melbourne. I'd like to speak about the leaf blower issue. I'd like to highlight, the support I have for people who are, pushing for restriction on the use of leaf blowers. I'd like to make clear that I really support, the landscapers in their work and, optimizing their time. But I think really with this leaf blower, we are suffering from noise, issues. One leaf blower is one thing for 3 minutes. Most of the time it's 3 to 4, leaf blowers at the same time, and for more than 5 minutes, actually rather around 10 or 15 minutes. And that's to me is really one of the main issues with this leaf blower. So while I don't want to prevent any work to be done and be done properly, I have issues with this, and I'd like to support any restriction on the use and regarding the noise of these leaf blowers. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Good evening.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, you could just put your camera on.
Yeah, I'm just trying to sort of.
Thank you.
Hi, Jonathan Baxter from Farbrook Drive in Short Hills, and I also want to speak about the seasonal gas leaf blower ban. So my understanding is, and I've done a fair bit of research on this, it looks like it gained a lot of momentum during COVID because of people working from home and their specific objections, quite reasonably, to the amount of noise that the blowers generate. And that was the primary sort of cause for the momentum getting started, or at least gaining momentum. But the thing to understand is that banning gas blowers and replacing them with electric won't change the noise levels. There are commercial, powerful backpack blowers, and I've spoken to several landscapers who tell me that these blowers are going to be just as effective during the summer months when we're proposing the ban. And they operate at 65 decibels. And to understand what that level is, it's about normal human conversation level. There's an application on your iPhone that you can pull up that shows the noise levels you've experienced over the last week. I'm not going to demonstrate it here because I'm talking on my iPhone, but if you open that app and look at your average noise levels, I did just before I came on this call. So for the last week, for me, it was 66 decibels, 1 decibel higher average noise. And I don't work in a loud job, trust me. I sit in front of a computer most of the day. So 65 decibels is actually very quiet, and it's the same volume as most electric leaf blowers. So it makes a lot more sense to focus on the noise issue directly and perhaps consider restricting the use of very noisy blowers, but not banning the gas engines altogether. And just quickly, I want to speak to emissions. There's a lot of misleading headlines about emissions. If you look into the data, though, the greenhouse gas emissions from gas leaf blowers are negligible, as you'd probably expect, given they burn very little fuel. They do generate other hydrocarbon emissions, but the California Air Resources Board did a study on this and found that they have a negligible impact on cancer risk for landscapers who are using them continuously. So the impact on the rest of us is essentially zero. So I would urge the Township Committee to consider either pushing this to a referendum where everybody who has a stake gets a chance to have input, or perhaps consider changing to a more noise-based focused ban, which has been tried elsewhere. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you, Perry Urso, Upper Milburn Avenue. I'm going to refer you guys to the ordinance 2561-20. I'm sure you're familiar with that by now. Section 12, letter A, the secretary. The secretary shall be the custodian of the corporation's records, documents, and the seal of the corporation. The secretary shall affix the corporate seal to all instruments, when authorized and directed to do so by the Board of Trustees. Shall keep the minutes of all meetings of the Board of Trustees, shall perform such duties not inconsistent with the ordinance, as may be incidental to the office or may be determined by the Board of Trustees and the chair of the board. Because the SID chair requests all attendees at their meetings to send their prepared statements to the executive director, Steve at Explore Milburn, is the secretary in compliance with their duties? And should the Township Committee act on Section 12 and letter E? Also, Section 12, letter B, the voting members of the Board of Trustees, number 2, states that 2 persons who are owners of real estate within the districts or officials of the corporation or entity owning real estate within the district to be called owner trustees. So let it be known for the record that there is only one owner trustee for 2 years. And as it has publicly previously been stated by the sitting mayor, that they cannot fill that vacancy. That's something that the review board might want to consider. Also, I'd like to, it was questioned at the February 27th SID board meeting, the expenditures from January 27th to January 31st in the amount of $1,775. And it was listed for the 2024 sponsored dinner. It was stated by the SID chair, she justified the expenses was to pay it forward. And the marketing director said that it was to thank the sponsors for their sponsorships. And this is the first time that they've done it. And that this would be paid for by the sponsors when the funds were received. Were the sponsors told that the part of their sponsorship money would go towards a dinner to thank them? And also, I would like to state regarding Ordinance 2700-25 regarding the chairs. Can you clarify if this ordinance reflects chairs sitting on boards or committees with a budget which reflect the use of trust fund monies? Thank you and have a wonderful evening.
Thank you. You're up, Bill.
Thank you. My name is Bill Brazel. I live in the South Mountain neighborhood. Like so many here tonight, I'm here to talk about the gas-powered leaf blowers. Really appreciate hearing the voices on all sides, and I want to emphasize again my respect for all of the hard work that landscapers do. As you know, I was a landscape laborer myself for a number of months and know how hard the work is, and I understand the strains that you guys are under. I do want to make clear, because there seemed to be some confusion, that this is a seasonal restriction that's being proposed, not a ban. It would not affect fall cleanup. It would not affect spring cleanup. It would only affect the time during which very little is on the ground. So this should not be a hardship. And we've talked to a number of landscapers about this who have told us, yeah, we can live with that. As landscapers live with it in more than 100 communities around the country, just in the last 2 weeks, West Orange and Glen Ridge also went with a seasonal restriction. Somehow they're able to cope. And the reason they're able to cope is that, in fact, the total cost of ownership for electric and battery leaf blowers is significantly less than the total cost of ownership of a gas leaf blower. There's a University of Arkansas study, which we will share with the Township Committee and anybody else who would like to see it, that emphasizes that. The other thing I want to talk about is that I'm saying landscapers are generally thriving in areas where this has happened. One clear evidence of this is the District of Columbia. Washington, D.C. passed a restriction about 4 years ago, and there has been absolutely no interest in bringing back gas leaf blowers, even by the landscapers. Everybody's business is just fine, and they really like life without it. What they compare it to is mandatory seatbelt laws that, when they were first proposed, people said, that's terrible. How dare you tell me what to wear in my car? But now nobody wants to go back to times before seatbelts because we've seen the difference that it makes. And finally, not finally, but just a couple of quick things. I have great respect for you, Charlie, but it is not true that we're only citing studies from 2011. In fact, I'll give you a quote from Consumer Reports from last year, where they said, no gas models are quiet by any stretch, and they studied all of them, and they said the best electric leaf blowers we've tested match or beat the best gas models in every single test we conduct. So it is simply not true that these things are no good and the technology is not there. Consumer Reports, I think most of us respect the testing that they do, has been very clear about it. And what's more, as Consumer Reports pointed out, they're also better for the planet, better for your cars, and over time, probably better for your wallet as well. I also have asthma, and I really appreciate the speaker who talked about that. Yeah, I'm time's up. Okay, all right. Anyway, thank you very much.
Good evening. Good, Christine Best, Milburn Township. I'm here to talk about the leaf blower ban seasonally, restriction ban semantics. I want to talk, electric is powered by coal, about 20% in the US. The rest of electric, I think, is 39% is gas. The rest is nuclear. So coal is one of the dirtiest uses, I mean, to burn. So there's a lot of things. I feel like this is not real green solution. That's my personal opinion, and I support climate change and efforts to fix that. So I really think this should be put out to a referendum, just like they did the open space tax, which is only going to equate to $300 or $400 a family, and they thought that was important to put out a referendum. From what these guys are talking about, and I've talked to some top landscapers, Todd Group, who I've used, and Discovery for many years. I've used quite a number of other people prior to that. They're talking about 30 to 40% increases. So some people spend a lot of money on their lawns. So, you're saying somebody should spend an extra $1,000, $2,000 a year with the taxes going up. I think that should be put to a vote. I feel very, very strongly about this. I also want to talk about equality and equity. Lithium is mined in mostly African countries. They use child labor and slave labor to mine that. It also destroys the ecosystem, it pollutes, it strips trees. It is not green in any way whatsoever. So you're trading something that's actually pretty clean for something that's really not that clean. As far as asthma goes, I've had allergies my whole life. I've had asthma. I'm very, very allergic to mold. Leaves harbor mold, okay? So leaving the leaves leaves mold for people. So you can look at it every way you want to. Leaving leaves also is a habitat for ticks. A lot of people, tick-borne illnesses are endemic. I can attest to that. I've spent 30 years combating Lyme disease. So I like to have a clean lawn. I'm not a diva. I just want a clean lawn so I don't get ticks when I roll along the lawn. I also wanted to talk the equipment. I think you guys should do an equipment test. I mean, why not do it? This is an important thing. It shouldn't just be done haphazardly. And I feel very strongly about it. And then I also wanted to talk about, you're going to run a generator on the street, okay? An electric raw generator. It's not like the high-end generators. What's the difference? It's literally 5 decibels more than gas blower. So it's kind of like you're going to be listening to somebody powering up all their battery cells. And I also want to remind you that lithium batteries explode. They're very, very dangerous. So now all these guys have to carry lithium batteries in their trucks and expose themselves to possibly an explosion. So I'm just saying that sometimes switching just to switch is not always the best thing. And I also think that maybe Melbourne can include maybe some type of, I'm sorry, I'll come back and say that. Thank you for.
Thank you. Okay, anyone else? Last but not least.
Good evening, Jerry Kung, Short Hills resident. Just wanted to have a quick question on resolution 25-080, authorizing furniture purchase under state contract. Just wanted to get some clarity on this. Is this furniture for the temporary space in East Willow? Is it furniture that's going to be in the renovated town hall? If it is for East Willow, is it going to be able to be reused in town hall? I'm sure you've thought of all of this already, so just wanted some clarity. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, one more. Good evening.
Hello.
Good
My
evening.
Hi, my name is Nidhi Thakur. I live in Coleridge on Coleridge Road in the Poet section. I would like to present my support for the seasonal ban on gas-powered leaf blowers. There have been innumerable scientific reasons already established why this would be a good thing. Chief among them, of course, being that gas-powered leaf blowers use up the amount of gas that we could count. One of them can add up to so many miles of cars driven, and the pollution ensues. Air pollution, sound pollution, none of which is great for our clean Melbourne. Also, the fact that if our neighboring towns can find a solution to this and have the ban in place and find lawns which are well maintained, I think we can do that too. Additionally, leaf does not need to be blown at all times. So we can all make suggestions and solutions on how to keep our lawns good for ourselves. But leaf unto itself promotes diversity, biodiversity. So, if some of it is there, I don't think it's such a bad thing. So overall, I support the seasonal ban on the gas-powered leaf blowers. Thank you.
Thank you. And now close public comments. Can we even still?
Sure, I'll go ahead and start. All right, quite the turnout. I'll just hit gas-powered leaf blowers up front. I'm gonna do the work to understand all of the ins and outs, benefits, advantages, disadvantages of it. I can promise that to all of the landscapers here in the room, as well as environmentalists. I have a private equity business. We're environmental bend, and I asked a couple of folks about it. What I want to make perfectly clear is that there is a science behind it, but every email I've gotten, everything's talking about the noise. So we have to make sure that we're addressing the issue that the community has. Is it the noise or is it the power? Just like when I was looking to buy a new car, I rented a Tesla for a month. I drove it. I did not end up buying a Tesla. I went out and bought a electric leaf blower with a lithium battery. I could barely blow anything off my yard. It was crazy. So I took it back, spent $350, got the 190 mile an hour one. Thing would blow rubber off a basketball. It was crazy. However, it lasts 15 minutes. And that was problematic. So just understanding and having that using the power. Also too, a seasonal restriction on the use of gas power blowers during the summer. I want to make sure we're hitting the summer months. That's mid-June to mid-September, I guess, or mid-September, versus understanding 6 months of seasonal ban or 5 months or whatever the case is. So I want to make sure that we do the work. And also the other piece too, my brother who lives in one of our neighboring towns, I like to think we're going to lead as a town, not follow. But he says the biggest annoyance ever is going outside. They're not using electrical generators, guys. They're using a big gas powered generator. He said it's crazy the size of these generators that are on the back of this truck, making more noise than you could ever imagine. So we have to understand if we're getting the result that we want with this ordinance when we pass it, if we pass it, as we look at it. So we will do that work and make sure we understand what it is, and also additional cost. Always have to take that into consideration. That being said, I support everyone's right for the environmental piece. The piece that really stuck out to me was the equivalent of running a gas leaf blower for a half hour is equivalent to driving a Ford 150 truck from here to Alaska or Georgia to Alaska or something. I've driven a Ford 150 truck. There's a hell of a lot of emissions coming out of that thing. So I start out with a negative perception on that. Next, I'm glad you guys enjoyed the gateway to Taylor Park. Looking forward to that. And I do offer to Ms. Jelen and Radhika, Dr. Radhika, to give me the science. I need to understand the science of it because I have young children as well at home. Yeah, that's about it. To Mr. Feld, that is a typo on the ordinance. It is serving as chair of a municipal committee. So we'll just have to make that before we pass it. That's it for me. Thank you, guys. Appreciate you breaking up.
Sure. As far as the sunsetting the open space tax, actually I have a question for Mr. Cantor. This was based on the vote that we passed where people voted on it, and there was no sunset clause in what was voted on. So I'm not sure that the question is that something, if we so chose to do, I'm not saying we do, is that something that we could do when we pass the ordinance for the open space tax, since that's not what people voted on?
I'd have to look at that. Okay. I mean, Deputy Mayor.
That's the question. I'm glad everybody's happy with the gateway. I saw the presentation and we've certainly come a long way from the original proposal. I would agree. Certainly, I'm sure Mr. McDonald would be able to get the input from those two committees. You know, people have opinions. It's no guarantees. And lastly, Mr. Kirsch, thank you for your, I don't know if anybody remembers, it was so long ago when you spoke, but thank you for your comments, and I wholeheartedly agree.
Sure. So for those of you that came out to speak in support of the Milburn Gateway project, I appreciate your comments. I was at the info session last week. I thought the plans looked great. I think it'll be a real needed improvement to our town. I would like the price to be a little bit better, but then again, who wouldn't? I do think that some of you brought up some good points. Maybe we should have the art committee and certainly the HPC should probably review the plans, give their input. Not that they, get to make a decision on it, but why not get their input, in a formal capacity? That's probably a good idea. Mr. Moriarty, I too would like to know if we are able to put a sunset on that open space tax. So Mr. Cantor will get back to us on that. It's a good thing to think about and consider. I guess we'll talk about the elephant in the room, the blowers. Yes. Blowers, they're so much fun. I've heard a lot of great arguments on both sides of this. And I came into this thinking one way. My thinking has evolved a little bit, but I think what we ended up with was, instead of a total, year-round ban, we've come up with something that will hopefully work for everyone, which is a seasonal restriction for a few months out of the year when you likely aren't going to need the high-powered blowers as much, right? So we're excluding the spring, excluding the fall. If the landscapers out there still have a problem with that and can make a compelling case, then I urge you guys to come forward and do so. Certainly send us, TC members, emails, etc. Because I've heard a lot of arguments, against banning the equipment outright. And I get that I understand, but I haven't heard a lot of arguments as to why these things are necessary in June, July, and August. And maybe there are reasons why they're needed, but I'd like to hear those reasons. Let's see. Ms. Pasternak, yes, the long-term spending plan. I agree, that is something we've been promised for a while. I'm hoping Mr. McDonald will give us an update on when he intends to do a presentation on the town's long-term spending plans. And then to Dr. Kung's question with regard to the furniture, Mr. McDonald, perhaps you could educate the public here as to whether that furniture is going to be temporary, just while we're rebuilding the town hall, or if that new furniture is going to be indeed moved to the new town hall when it's finished. That's all I have. Thanks.
Committeeman Cosgrove?
Yes, thank you. I'm gonna go through this pretty quick because a lot's been said. But I do support the gateway changes to the entrance. I do think it's a good idea to have the Arts Council and HPC take a look at that. I'm gonna say, thank you to all the people that are talking about the leaf blower ban. I've gotten a lot of emails. I'm assuming many of us have as well. I haven't responded to all those, but I am reading those, and I appreciate those. So I want to know that. The 5-year suggested by Mr. Morial about the 5-year sunset on the open space, depending on what Mr. Cantor says, I think that's a good idea to have. We can always reevaluate it, see, if the funds have been used to, for the purposes that everyone, expects them to be used for. Mr. Morial had a comment about the one zoning section being referred to the zoning review committee. I think that's a good idea. I have some of that on new business at the end, so I'll loop that back in at that time. Thank you, folks.
Thank you. The furniture that we're buying for East Willow is coming back here. I think you mentioned that at the last meeting, right? The leaf blower restriction ordinance is ongoing. There's a lot of communication back and forth. And just from my own curiosity, I think I'm gonna take a ride to Maplewood South Orange over the summer and see what I hear. I think that's all I wanted to comment on.
Thank you, Mayor. Just to answer a couple questions. One, just to be more specific about the furniture. Yes, what we are purchasing is 28 workstations that will occupy 22 East Willow. Those workstations will come back, and we've worked with, for the last several weeks, with a furniture contractor that's on state contract to match and marry our plans for the new town hall and renovated space, and the number of workstations we need there, and also what we're gonna need in the temporary space. Comes out to be about 28 workstations. That doesn't include furniture for, offices, the new township committee room, things like that. But as far as the overall workspaces, 28 workstations. We're also purchasing a few additional panels to provide privacy at 22 East Willow for particular personnel, payroll, things like that. But yes, it is intended that it is a one purchase, and hopefully it'll be back here for the next 20 years, 25 years or longer. The question was a good question regarding town hall closure, just to provide people some semblance of what our plan is, because particularly this year in 2025, we would like to have the best of all things. And so the plan is that we are moving out on April 18th. We are currently out to bid for the environmental remediation of the space, and that will take place over the next few months. And that will then cease. Again, this is best laid plans, right? Will cease when we close town hall. Town hall renovation and addition will be bid at that time for a start date after Labor Day, so that we can enjoy the town hall closure this summer, and then get started on the real work when it comes to town hall. So there are two separate bids, there's two separate projects, but that would start after Labor Day, so that we can enjoy the space this summer. Just one thing I'd like to just overall say to the Township Committee as it relates to the open space and the sunset, and certainly Mr. Cantor will look into the legality of whether that can be established. Keep in mind too that the open space ordinance allows for indebtedness based on that fund. So if there is a larger project that you are going out and purchasing, let's say it's a $10 million project, and using the open space trust to fund that, then you may lose that ability if you do sunset. So just to keep that keep that in mind. I think that's it. Thank you, Mayor. Oh, and I'll certainly reach out to those groups on the Taylor Park Gate.
I just want clarity. So for ordinance 2700-25, I think we're saying the substance is good. The title needs to be changed from an ordinance prohibiting political party chairs from serving as chairperson on municipal committees. And the section 1 title should also have that same language, but it's just the title or the substance, like the ordinances.
And actually, I forgot, I would like to add an answer to Ms. Pasternak's question. The way the ordinance is written, it applies to all committees, not just those with budgetary.
Yeah, it applies to all committees, including this committee.
And what about the question of, would it be active immediately and apply to, you know, if there was someone that was on a committee, there was also a chair of a political party, would they have to come off? I would think they should, but.
The way the ordinance is written, once it's in effect, then the current chairperson would have to choose one or the other.
Great.
I have nothing further unless there's any questions.
Thank you. The Township Committee will now consider consent agenda resolutions. Are there any comments from the committee in regard to any items listed on the consent agenda? May I have a motion to approve resolution 25-072 through resolution 25080, which are listed on the consent agenda?
So moved.
May I have a second? Roll call vote, please.
Deputy Mayor Cohen,
Yes.
Mr. Cosgrove,
Yes.
Mr. Sacramandi,
Yes.
Mr. Stoller,
Affirmative.
Mayor Romano.
Yes. Ordinance 2698-25. I would like to sponsor, this is the procedure for introducing ordinance on first reading. I would like to present an ordinance entitled Ordinance 2698-25. An ordinance establishing Chapter 23, Open Space Recreation and Historic Preservation Trust Fund of the Code of the Township of Millburn. I move that this ordinance be taken up and passed on first reading, and that the township clerk be authorized to have the ordinance published in accordance with law in the item and for hearing and final passage on Tuesday, April 1st, 2025. May I have a second?
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
This is the time I have a question. So if we choose to do a sunset clause or anything, then this has to start over? How does that
Yeah,
work?
you would have to we would have to reintroduce it.
So we're
If
just
we
pushing
were
it
if we were gonna amend it, we'd have to reintroduce it with sunset clause. I think that'd be a material change to the ordinance.
So
But we don't have to make that decision now. We could.
I can come back with my
Forward.
research. I can say my preliminary research, and I don't want to give a definite answer, was that it would have had to been in the referendum, but I don't want to give that opinion just from the little bit of research I did sitting here.
Okay, so we'll address that when you.
Yeah, so but if the answer is a sunset and you guys, the committee decides to include it, you would have to amend it, and you have to amend and reintroduce it at the next meeting.
Did I get a second?
I second.
Oh, roll call vote, please.
Deputy Mayor Cohen.
Yes.
Mr. Cosgrove,
Yes.
Mr. Sacramandi,
Yes.
Mr. Stoller,
Affirmative.
Mayor Romano.
Yes. Committeeman Cosgrove, you're scheduled to sponsor ordinance 2699-25.
Yes, thank you. I'd like to present the ordinance entitled ordinance number 2699-25. It's an ordinance authorizing the Township of Millburn to execute a cell tower and compound lease agreement for that certain property located on block 5401 and lot 1 in the Township of Millburn. A brief description, this is kind of a cleanup from the cell tower that the town agreed to put up on JFK to improve cell service in the town. I move that this ordinance be taken up and passed on first reading. The township clerk be authorized to have the ordinance published in accordance with the law in the item, and for hearing and final passage on Tuesday, April 1st, 2025.
May I have a second?
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Deputy Mayor Cohen.
Yes.
Mr. Cosgrove.
Yes.
Mr. Sacramandi,
Yes.
Mr. Stoller,
Affirmative.
Mayor Romano.
Yes. Committeeman Stoller, you're scheduled to sponsor ordinance 2700-25.
Sure. Do I have to make the motion to change the title first?
I think we just, the clerk can just note that the titles have been changed because of substance. The substance is the same, we're just making those two changes to the titles.
As you know, there's comments.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Clerk.
I would like to present an ordinance entitled ordinance number 2700-25, an ordinance prohibiting political party chairs from serving as chairpersons of municipal committees. Anybody want an explanation, or everyone's on board on that?
Good.
Okay, so, in my belief too, it's fundamentally incompatible and poses a conflict of interest, so that's why I'm pressing it forward. I move that this ordinance be taken up and passed on first reading, and that the township clerk be authorized to have the ordinance published in accordance with law in the item and for hearing and final passage on Tuesday, April 1st, 2025.
May I have a second?
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Deputy Mayor Cohen,
As I said, I think this is an overreach, and I also think this is a local version of some politics of retribution, so I'll be voting no.
Mr. Cosgrove,
Yes.
Mr. Sacramandi,
Yes.
Mr. Stoller,
Affirmative.
Mayor Romano,
Yes.
Resolution passed. I mean, the ordinance was introduced.
Okay, we have no matters of old business, new business, Committeeman Stoller. Rooftop deck.
Sure, I've been, for a few years now, I've been discussing and some people have come and asked about rooftop decks in in business-only settings within certain distance from residential, so only using in commercial. I wanted to get the temperature, whether we had a consensus to move that forward on the dais. Really, when you look at the benefits for a small township, it allows for areas that are not functional today to be functional, gardens, patios, without going into our green space. And then also the economic benefit to the town is great. So I just wanted to kind of get some feedback from you guys, what you were thinking.
So I think it's a very slippery slope. We might find ourselves, so let's say we allow it in one section of town, we might find ourselves potentially open to litigation in the future for why it's in one part of town and not another. I know that this was a contentious issue during the third round of affordable housing. There was a developer that was pushing really hard for these rooftop decks. And I know it was quite contentious then. I grew up in a town that had a bustling downtown, and they had rooftop decks, and I will say it would still get noisy, even from a few blocks away. You could hear the noise at night. A lot of times it was a restaurant or a bar that would have this outdoor seating. Yeah, it was great to go in and enjoy and partake, but I understand that the people that live around that area probably wouldn't be too thrilled about it. So to me, I think this is an issue that we've, prior committees have already looked at. And I think the decision was made that this was a bad idea. And I stand by that. I think it remains a bad idea for our town. I just, in a city, it might make sense. In a place like Summit, which is a city, that might make sense. But I think for Milburn Short Hills, it doesn't.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I also don't think it's a good idea. We went through a huge effort 2 years ago, roughly. With some of the same folks, and the decision was made that we didn't want that for our town. There's a lot of problems and dangers. The first is the township's ability to enforce any conditions or regulations. As far as consistency, there's fire concerns, certainly. There's escape routes for people in a non-emergency. There's the ability or inability of the fire department to fight a fire 2 or 3 floors up as the town gets built out more with expected housing. You're going to have people living in apartments nearby places, and if there's a fire, there's a real issue there. There's a risk to neighboring buildings. There's the overcrowding and overuse of a specific site. You have a restaurant, for instance, on the first floor. Now we're going to double that capacity 3 floors up or 2 floors up or whatever it might be. There's weight loads of the buildings we don't know, and I suspect it would be very difficult to determine whether or not the buildings can hold the weight. There's overcrowding, there's chances of furniture, et cetera, blowing off the top of these. I saw an article last week where apparently one lone cigarette butt on a rooftop in Greenwich Village started a monstrous fire. So it doesn't take much. So anyway, my thought is no interest at all.
I have to agree with Committeeman Saccomandi and Cosgrove. I think it was debated before we got here. We've come to a decision. I don't see any need to reopen it.
Were we looking at like overall, or maybe just like in
That was
like a business district or like a downtown, just over like a restaurant, not necessarily residential?
I know it, I don't remember discussing it here. I remember discussing it at the planning board, which I think got it after, and that was I think it came on just before we came, and then, but then it got to the planning board once we were there, and that was a proposal at the planning board as a possible modification, and that was voted down as well.
Yeah, I mean, it just opens Pandora's box, and it's, I think, tough to put limits on it, and have those limits be enforceable and potentially hold up in court over time. You know, I just feel like this is something that was litigated quite thoroughly in the past, and to bring it up 2-3 years later, it just doesn't make sense.
No, makes sense. I just want to get your temperature on it. You know, if building, 500 to 2,000 apartments or residents and turning into a city from a township and using sensible development, does it make sense, et cetera? It sounds like it doesn't. I just want to get the temperature of the committee.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Committeeman Cosgrove? Zoning review.
Yeah, thank you very much. Some of you know this, some of you don't. We have a zoning review board, and part of their duties is to look at our zoning codes and see whether or not there should be changes or tweaks made to it. And the process that we're using is going to be a referral of the zoning matters or zoning interests from the TC, to the board. So I had a couple that I wanted to have this committee endorse. Doesn't mean we have to vote ultimately in favor of these things, but it would just send it to the zoning review committee to look at it and see what they thought. So the first was, and this is attached to the agenda, was requiring design and material guidelines for, apartment complexes. We have some language already in our zoning codes, but I think it could be beefed up. A lot of it's, dealing with, buildings being consistent with the neighborhood, whether it's size, whether it's the siding on it, et cetera, et cetera. The other one that I had is not on my list, but Mr. Morial brought it up, which is the one code about the setbacks, which I also would like to see referred to the zoning review. And the last, which is somewhat zoning review, but I'll have to, talk to the fire department, was in connection with one of the fair share housing buildings. The fire department told me that they thought our fire codes could be updated and made perhaps a little more rigorous to protect people from fires. So that would be, again, that would be something I'd talk to the fire department about and then come back ultimately, if they have comments.
I would also, I brought it up numerous times last year and the process was never clear to me. But now that I'm sitting on this committee, and we've established the process that it has to start here, I would just like to add that the committee should also be looking at a policy on accessory dwelling units. I know that the state is considering something and it may override what we choose to do here, but in the interim, I think we should have a policy that is appropriate for our town.
I'd add that in, so that's 3, I guess: the fire department design and material guidelines, accessory dwelling.
And last time we talked about potentially, we talked about a ordinance restricting the merging of lots, and I think Mr. Cantor, you would do some legal homework on that.
I referred that to McManaman
Okay.
and Scott Bauman. They haven't gotten back to us yet.
All right, so maybe we can follow up with them, because I think that would be, if we can do it, I don't even know if it has to go to the subcommittee, but you might as well bring it up at the subcommittee just so they know that we're considering it. And then also doing something perhaps like they did in New York, where they prevent property from being held in an anonymous LLC.
Both of those are
okay.
So
all right, so we'll just follow up on that.
In addition to that, and I certainly agree, Dave, the first grade, the A grade building materials that are being used at Annie Says are just fantastic. When they presented that, it's top of the line, beautiful building. Very similar to Ivy over in Chatham. I don't know if anybody's driven by there, but as I said, when we were looking at Annie Says, I went over and looked at the Ivy, just beautiful building. And all A-grade building products designed to go into the neighborhood setting and just fit right in. It's a very good job. And then second though, let's go a little step further while we're here. What about requirements for existing structures and creating a program of such, if we can, to get some type of, consistency? We don't have any consistency in our town. You mentioned Summit and Westfield and some of the other towns prior. They have a beautiful facades. There's requirements for zoning and such. Can we look at that as well to upgrade the aesthetics, if you will, of our town?
Some towns have design review boards or design guidelines. I know Summit has some sort of guidelines. So maybe that's something that would help what you were suggesting. I don't know that you can go and retroactively make people go and change the existing buildings, but you could probably set standards going forward, or if there's a renovation or something. So.
Right, or some type of matching funds of something along those lines as well. I mean, for the paper mill, we are investing $7 million. We're getting $35 million worth of upward improvements on that site. So some type of give some money forward if they improve that aesthetics, things like that. I mean, if we're going down this path, why not go for all?
Of course, if we could say it
Are
was
you good there,
substandard.
Committeeman?
I'm fine with that. I'm fine with that. Except for the spending money part.
Yeah, I know that's about to.
Oh, I mean, I'm certainly Committeeman Cosgrove and Deputy Mayor Cohen. I think part of this is also making sure that we prioritize these within that group, because the list will get long and the list will get, but making sure that that group can properly prioritize that based on, perhaps the committee's feeling of what takes precedent. But I also think, the Summit ordinance, a lot of that too is suggestive guidelines, like they provide examples, illustrative, which I think is also helpful. So and I know that's been talked about in the past, so hopefully that will come up as well.
Thank you. Okay, public comment. This public comment period is allowed to allow for final comments from the community. When invited to speak to offer your comments, please come to the lectern, clearly state your name and whether you are a Millburn resident and or property or business owner. Please do not provide your full address, seeing our meetings are recorded and readily available to the public. A reminder that in order to help facilitate an orderly meeting and to permit all to be heard, speakers shall limit their comments to 1 3-minute session.
Charles Bambara, 28-year resident of Millburn Township. I want to thank Bill Brazell for his efforts, and no disrespect intended at all to him and the work that his committee has done. I do want to point out, I'll thank you for the reference to the Consumer Reports article. I'll research it and look it up. I do know that several manufacturers just introduced new models this springtime. So if he's referring to a report from a year ago, it most likely did not include these models. I'd like you to consider, if you were to impose a noise ban and require low noise and allow gas powered, you can have the best of both worlds, because you can have it quiet all year round. It doesn't need to be seasonal. So I understand the intent. I'm just trying to find the best solution. I'd like to propose something. I understand that the township, DPW, doesn't own any low noise leaf blowers. Why don't you buy an electric one, and why don't you buy a low noise gas one, and let's have a live demo, and let's let the equipment speak for itself. But I support quieter tools. I think there's a good compromise, and there's some research to be done. We don't have to follow other towns. We can lead other towns and come up with something sensible.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I believe there's an environmental meeting next week, right, Bill?
Yeah.
There's a meeting. Tuesday?
Jeffrey Feld, I just basically have like three
points to make. First, there was no discussion of the Bear Properties Case Management Conference, I think occurred on February 20th. I recommend that the TC get a copy of the transcript of that case management conference. As for round 3, in chaos, there's great opportunities. About 2 weeks ago, Judge Ho, in the case regarding Mayor Adams, made a referral for a special adjudicator, because he says sometimes when you have a settlement, when the two adversaries are agreeing, sometimes you need a third party to look at it. And I think we should be maybe mentioning that, because when we look at the July 30th, 2021 settlement, public had no input. No one really looked at the legalities of it. And I think when we go back and looking at it, especially in some of the case law that came out the last 2 weeks as to an interested party, fundamental rights, that was, mentioned in the Norcross, dismissal of the indictment, that I think we go on the offensive. And I take it because I don't think really Fair Share Housing Center really wants to have a fight with us anymore. Because they've seen we've got a new general, a new army with McMahon, Scotland, and they know what some of the citizens have been doing over the years. Finally, on Sunday night, a former resident did really well at the Oscars. He won 4 Oscars, But when he was talking about it, he was talking about, we're coming up to the 5th anniversary of the shutdown of COVID. And I think we as a community should really understand how the shutdown really affected everyone here. Civility lost. And we really had to start rebuilding the community, trust in institutions. And I think, we should invite Sean Baker here and have a proclamation for him. Because some of the ideas, like he was talking about movie theaters, that the public really can't just watch TVs. We have to start building the trust in the community. And I just throw that out because many of us know people that died. Many of my neighbors, their families in India were decimated. And I think we really should reflect about what we've gone through and how we're going to go forward and bring this community forward. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi again, Diane Eglow. Let's see, I hope the gateway gets done in a reasonable amount of time, because you can go through 1,000 tweaks and get 1,000 opinions, and it would be very sad if it doesn't get done. You wanted to have it start by spring and be finished in a reasonable time. So the other thing is, when you said the landscapers can only have the seasonal ban in the summer, so big deal, they have to get a second set of equipment. I think that is redundant and also not fair to the landscapers to make them have a set of equipment, a gas blower for the leaves and whenever, and then they have to buy a second electric blower just for 3 months in the summer. Rooftop decks was a big deal when I was sitting up there in the Chatham Road, and it was all because people didn't want people looking down into the property. I don't know how many commercial areas could even put a rooftop deck. I personally would much rather sit on the roof than sit on the ground while the dirt is coming up. And I think that this town just has to advance and, always stop being like doomsday. Frank, I'm sorry, you named like 20 doomsday situations if we have a rooftop deck.
I think that was Mr. Cosgrove.
Was it Cosgrove?
I think it was me.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Cosgrove. I know you, I apologize, Frank. Dave, I know you have been against rooftop decks because of the Chatham Road. That building, is that even being built? What's happening there? I'm curious. Oh, bravo.
Oh, I've seen 5 years later, it's a hole in the ground right now.
All right, well,
It is starting.
That's great. I mean, we've lost a lot of tax revenue and people ability to live there. So I think it's time to kind of get with modern time. You can have a rooftop deck. You could add extra seating for these restaurants during COVID. Some of these restaurants doubled their capacity, but you didn't have cars driving by. So I think it's time to allow rooftop decks for commercial properties and, move on. Thank you. Good night.
Debbie Frank, Milburn resident. Sorry, another remark about the gas blowers. I personally think a seasonal ban on blowers makes a great deal of sense. There's no real need, I don't think, to have high-powered leaf blowers in the summertime. Now, I have to say, I don't care if there are leaves on my yard. I don't care if there are leaves in my driveway. this is not an important thing to me, and maybe I'm out of step that way, but it wouldn't particularly bother me. As for the generators being on for electric blowers, people having those generators on the back, just because you would have a seasonal ban doesn't mean you could also not, you could still enact a noise ban. They don't have to be, it doesn't have to be one or the other, so you could actually have a seasonal ban on glass blowers without having those mobile generators. So that's it, thanks.
Jonathan Baxter, Farbrook Drive, town resident for 12 years. So I just wanted to address some of the extra remarks that were made about the summer, particularly referring to the fact that we don't need gas leaf blowers in the summer. That's not true. Like my trees, I don't know, depending on what kind of foliage you have in your yard, but my trees drop stuff all year round, on my deck, on my pool deck, patio. So something has to be done with that every week. And banning gas blowers in the summer, we've heard it several times. I just want to make one more point. It won't reduce the noise if we switch to electric. There are commercially available, powerful leaf blowers. I've confirmed with the landscapers they can use them in the summer, and they're 65 decibels, which is measured by American National Standards Institute B175.2. So it's not just the manufacturers coming up with, oh, with 65 decibels when it's really like 85 or something. No, it has to meet some objective standard. And 65 decibels, you probably can't see it, but that was my sound level according to my phone for the last week. You can get this app, 66 decibels. So it's not loud. And it's essentially exactly the same volume as the electric blowers. So the point really is that banning the gas blowers won't change the noise if people switch to electric. It'll be the same. You can just, but you can demand that people use quieter blowers in the summertime. And the landscapers already spoke to the impracticality of commercial electric blowers, but I want to give you some sort of idea. The batteries cost up to $1,000 each. You need two for the high-end steel model that's going to generate the volume of air that you need. And that charge lasts around 15 minutes. So in order to get through a day, if you wanted to stockpile enough batteries for a couple of leaf blowers, you're talking $100,000 worth of batteries. And that's not feasible. Like the landscapers aren't going to go out there and invest in $100,000 worth of battery, especially because the technology is still experimental. You know, they would go broke, or we would be paying triple our landscaping bills. So if they don't do that, then they'll end up recharging them on the back of a truck with a generator, and you'll have an electric blower that's just as quiet as a loud gas blower. Just as loud as a quiet gas blower, and you'll have a generator running continuously on the back of a truck charging batteries. So you're going to actually be worse off than if you hadn't imposed a ban. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
I have printed testimony. Can I also distribute that?
Sure.
Yeah, just a sec. I only printed up 5, yeah. for
Thank
the
you.
Township members, and I'll pick up more. Good evening, everyone. My name is Matt Greller. I'm a Millburn resident, member of the Environmental Commission. I just want to talk about the seasonal restriction on the gas-powered leaf blowers and refute some of the intentionally misleading statements that are made tonight. This is about noise. That's what you and I hear. But the issue with leaf blowers is about frequency. And if I can make a distinction, you can have something that has the same metric, exact same number, like a glass of milk and a glass of cola. They can have the same calories. They don't have the same nutrition. So you can have the same decibels of leaf blowers, but they have very completely different frequencies. So much so that you could stand outside right now with an electric leaf blower and it wouldn't bother you here. But the gas-powered leaf blower travels far. It travels between homes. It travels through homes. It travels through your windows, and it disturbs everything you're doing in your own home. In the written testimony that I submitted, there's a lot of information with reports from this past calendar year about the total cost of ownership. And independent groups like Consumer Reports and Wirecutter both recommend electric leaf blowers over gas-powered leaf blowers for residential use, for small properties and for large properties. Studies show that the total cost of ownership of the electric leaf blower saves money for landscapers. Total cost of ownership. They're not expending money on fuel. they can purchase multiple batteries up front and still get an ROI in less than a year. And I haven't even started to talk about emissions, because emissions don't come from blowing the air, they come from the terrible engines, the two-stroke gas-powered engines in the gas-powered leaf blowers. So you will hear a lot about decibels or studies pointing to blown air. Those are canards. The true issue is the frequency, it's the traveling of the noise into your home, and it's the terrible emissions that are polluting, exacerbating diseases, and harming the public health of this town. This is a quality of life issue. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, good evening. Good evening. My name is Nitya. I'm a resident in the Wyoming area, Melbourne. I'm here to support the seasonal restriction on the gas-powered leaf blowers. I think they're not necessary in the season that we are proposing that restriction. I'm an energy analyst by profession. I want to see it more scientific than anything else on everything, considering all of from the sound, frequency, and emissions as well. Somebody had pointed out that electricity is not clean as such. I just want to clarify the gas we're saying in gas blowers is different from gas we use for heating. Agreed, utility electricity grids are not as clean as we'd like them to be, but there's a movement to make them cleaner. And that's where all of our decarbonization efforts and buildings are going. So we want to be ahead of that game. So just want to highlight gasoline is what is running the gas blowers versus gas is what is being used for electricity generation. Thank you.
Thank you.
See that's coming back. I have a couple of things, hopefully I can get through them. I do want to thank the EC for all their hard work. I just agree to disagree. So I still want to really acknowledge the massive improvement this group has done. Going back to the leaf blower, I want to talk about frequencies, okay? So you can actually kill cancer cells with different frequencies, Beethoven's symphony, okay? And I know a lot about that. You can kill things like Lyme disease with frequencies. There's German frequency machines that do that. So frequencies, I can say my personal anecdotal opinion, an electric blower, the frequency is very high pitched and it is whining and very, very painful to my ears. So I kind of like think of it as sort of being like versus a roar. So it's kind of like, you know, frequencies, they are higher pitched, okay? So, I mean, it's basically says electric blowers generating higher frequency noise compared to gas blowers, which produce a mix of low and high frequencies. So, which means electric blowers tend to sound more like a high pitched whine, while gas blowers have a deeper, more rumbling sound. And to his point, they can travel further, but you know, it's really like, we don't really know the answer to that question. So I just wanted to say that. I also want to talk about, I think somebody else talked about the partial ban. You're basically asking somebody to have 2 sets of equipment, okay? So I think that's really a huge ask. You got to either go in big or don't do it at all. And that's just my personal opinion. And then to answer Frank's question about the need for a blower in the summertime. So most of these landscapers, they come through with large power mowers that are mulching mowers and they don't have bags attached to them. So what happens is the grass spews all over the lawn and they then come through with a blower and blow it out as quickly as possible. So what happens is if you were to leave that on your lawn, like all over your lawn, number one, if you happen to sit on the lawn and enjoy nature, you're going to be like having grass stains all over. Your dogs are bringing grass, but more importantly, it actually kills the grass. So sometimes my landscaper leaves big clumps just because they didn't finish and drives me crazy because I'm like, oh, dead spot there, dead spot there. So there's actually a reason to have a blower. And also like in planting beds as well, if you have a delicate bed where you have, let's say you have delicate ferns and different flowers that, you know, are perennials that, you know, they drop their petals more easily, like you have a bunch of, you know, I'm just peonies in the bed or whatever, and some ferns, for example, you will have a really hard time actually trying to take a rake in there and pull out acorns or any type of tree droppings. So blowers are very, very useful. And also, who wants to have, the power of these blowers is less. So now I have to listen to the whirring noise and the whining noise longer versus somebody getting in and getting out and doing it cleanly. I do also want to talk just really quickly about the HPC in regards to the Gateway Park. Barton Ross is on the staff of the town, and he should have been consulted in advance of even starting designs. Thank you.
Anyone else before we go online?
Carrie Heller, Courtyard, 343 Melbourne Avenue, 35 Main, now known as, I guess, the Willow and Wisp building. The ordinance that came about the rooftops was sort of a knee-jerk reaction, and David, your group and people justifiably for what was going to be next to the Arboretum. It was terrible, from fire pits to lights to music, a large communal deck facing in the Arboretum. It was good reason to not have that. To my knowledge, and I'll stand to be corrected, I don't believe there's another city in New Jersey that has a outright ban on rooftops. There are conditional uses. Again, you want to make sure that it doesn't face into residential. You don't want the fire pits. It could be height, it could be setbacks. Right across the street, we actually have, if you want to call it a rooftop deck or a balcony. The ordinance, which is here, which was passed in 2023, doesn't outlaw balconies. We have balconies throughout not only the residential districts, but you have them throughout the commercial district. Next to the post office, there's ones, the book building right across the street, and I have photos of people out there this morning. I'm not sure what the harm is. Let's just talk about the commercial side. Office space in this downtown, despite Steve from Explorer's contention, the downtown doing well, office space is suffering terribly everywhere. And I think we all know that, generally speaking, but Explorer does nothing for the downtown. I own the Courtyard, I have some flat roofs. I have nowhere in my building where it faces into a residential district. Or Alex, for that matter, this building, I haven't looked at the rooftop of this building as to what the shape is. I'm a little surprised that we don't have a rooftop for the amenities for the employees here. It's not facing, if you look where we're at and where it's facing out to the back or it's facing into this, I hope it didn't just cost you some more money. We have opportunities to do it in the right way. Communal is different than private. I don't want to get into the debates and the merits. I saw Kenny Mandelbaum here tonight and some of the properties. He has the movie theater and there's Charles Schwab there. I don't know that there's any plan or any possibility to put people on that roof, but to help people come work in the downtown. I can tell you the Courtyard, on any given day, I have 10, 12 people in the building. It used to be 30, 40 people. You can work remote. You don't have to come in. You need reasons to cause people to come in. I have a great company now in the building called Blue Crux from Belgium. Sometimes there's 30 people in the building. Often not, but you would cause more people to come to the downtown, to live in the downtown. I've made the provisions within the apartments for 35 Main to have 4 private decks up on the roof. Haven't applied for permits, haven't built them out for such, but it can happen. And there's all sorts of places. The building on Taylor Park. I don't know that that's the right place next to Taylor Park to the one story where the 2 Asian restaurants are. It may be, but please give it consideration. Tonight's not the night to, I'll speak with each of you individually, but thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, man.
Anyone? Good evening. Good evening. You're on.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Sonali Sharma, and I'm a resident of Glenwood Shore Hills. Thank you for paying attention to the environment and public health needs of Melbourne. I'm here to support the seasonal restriction of gas-powered blowers. I think enough has been said, and I don't want to belabor the data and scientific evidence here, but I think it's a commonsensical fact that gas blowers operate with inefficient 2-stroke engine that pollute and significantly impact the air quality with their emissions footprint and therefore the public health of our community. Electric leaf blowers are quieter than gas-powered blowers, also require less maintenance. There is enough data on Consumer Reports to suggest every year the technologies for electric gas blowers are getting better. For example, electric brand blower brands are now looking at interchangeable electric batteries with other equipment such as lawn mowers, hedge trimmers, etc. So I urge us to look at the ordinance for seasonally restricting gas-powered blowers. We completely understand the technology is still not there, hence the ask is for a seasonal restriction. It's a win-win middle ground practical solution for the community as well as the landscapers. From an economic perspective, if you look at the total cost of a seasonal restriction, once you factor in the lifetime cost of gas, from a lower environmental footprint and better public health, many other towns have similar partial or full restriction, and I think a seasonal restriction is a step change in the right direction. So thank you for the support.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry. Hi, Jean Pasternak. I just wanted to finish my comment about the long-range plan. Given that it's already spring, if that long-range planning effort is going to be finished in the next coming weeks, is it possible to schedule a public meeting somewhere on the calendar before everyone breaks for the summer so that this doesn't get to be a discussion that happens in a vacuum about what residents, property owners would like to see in this long-range planning effort? And I say that because I remember we discussed this in the context of creating a citizens budget advisory committee, and that was rejected on the basis that this effort would take place. So I really do hope that there won't be any timing issue with including the public in a very vibrant discussion on our long-range planning. The other comment I wanted to make was on the rooftop decks is I think there was a really robust discussion, and I don't really understand why this is coming up, especially when it does appear that we are being sued by the Jersey Builders Association, which many of the developers are members of, if not all. So it's kind of odd timing that this topic is coming up again just when the town is being sued for reducing our DCA obligation for very good technical reasons. We're still being sued by the same organization. So I just find it a bit hypocritical. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. Can you put your camera on, please? Hi.
Hi, can you see me now?
Yep.
Okay. Hi, this is Vinita Gangwal. I'm a resident of Deerfield section. I'm also an appointed member of the Melbourne Environmental Commission. And we have heard many arguments today, both in favor of as well as against the proposed seasonal restriction on gas-powered leaf blowers. But, I'm not going to argue for or against, the efficacy of the battery power or the cost involved with it. However, I really want the draw the attention of the Township Committee members to this simple fact. The simple fact is that this proposed seasonal restriction is proposed in its current form because the Environmental Commission, after having done a lot of public outreach, having incorporated feedback from the community, really does understand that there are concerns with current technology which cannot deal with heavy leaves fall and fall. However, the point is that during May through September, when the leaves fall, should be minimal, and perhaps some people still need to use it, then we need to come to a compromise. Just imagine, the other extreme, the other end of this continuum. Maplewood has a ban throughout the year, and believe it or not, there are many people in our town who would like a ban just like that.
But are we proposing that? No, we are not proposing that. The proposal is very simply using a common sense middle ground approach of restricting use of highly polluting, both from an air as well as noise perspective, gas powered leaf blowers, and allowing people who really must use it to use electric versions instead. So this is a compromise on both sides. And in a community, we all need to compromise. We cannot have it all. Just like those who want a permanent ban throughout the year are not having it. Similarly, those who want their right to blow away all the leaves, however and whenever they want it, also need to learn to compromise. Because guess what? There have been many, many citizens in town who have been trying to get some kind of restriction in place for 5+ years and fighting for it. They have been bearing this air pollution and noise pollution throughout these years, and it's not even from their own doing. They have to bear it from their neighbors' lawns and from everybody around them who choose to use these noisy and polluting equipment. So very simple point here is that this is a compromise and everybody needs to give up something to live in a community where people have diverse opinions. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening. Sorry, I'm in space. I don't know why that is, but my name is Kyle Jacobs, and I am a Milburn resident, concerned Milburn resident. And I just wanted to express my support for the seasonal restriction on gas-powered leaf blowers. I think it's been beat to, being not to beat the dead horse tonight because I know it's been talked about a lot, so I'll keep it short. Provide some excellent sources, and it's all credible scientific data. I read it over myself, and I think it's a phenomenal way to understand what's really going on because I know there's been a lot of information that's been thrown around. So hopefully this can provide some clarity. I think it's a fair compromise, and I hope you'll consider it. Thank you.
Thank you. I will now close public comment. Does anybody have any comments?
No, everybody, thanks for the discussion on the gas power blowers. Matt, I look forward to reading your piece that you left for us. I actually do want to meet with you face to face at some point in the future before. I haven't seen the final document yet. I guess it was submitted to Annette. Did you pass it around?
No, I don't think.
Okay, because I haven't even seen any of the final.
No, we
haven't received it. We haven't done it. So yeah, this is all on the come. So I don't even know what the months are yet for this. So, we'll do the work and we'll understand and make the best decision we can going forward, understanding the science and the practical nature of it as well. Rooftop decks. I'm never going to the Peninsula rooftop again after that comment Dave Cosgrove made. Thursdays after work, that's where I am, rooftop Peninsula roof deck. So anyway, I think I understand everybody's position and, we'll move it forward accordingly or not. It sounds like there's a lot of opposition to it. Gene Pasternak, I see no correlation between rooftop decks and being sued by the builders. So I'm just lost on that. And then we'll go for a fair compromise. Thanks.
Deputy Mayor Cohen.
I have nothing further.
Can we have a second?
Nothing further.
Thank you.
I'd like to, because I missed it on the last one, answer Gene Pasternak's question about the long range planning. Our goal is to have that. We are planning to introduce the municipal budget, hopefully. All things on April 1st. We have our normal public information session on the budget. I'd like to have it prepared and ready to discuss with the public at that point. And then, certainly we could start the conversation from there. So, and lastly, just want to clarify that the township does have, I actually walked in today in our public works, we're using an electric blower. So I just wherever that, we do have some of them, just so everybody knows.
Could we maybe have someone from the DPW that's been operating these electric blowers come and talk about the efficacy?
Sure, and please just keep in mind too that they are smaller handheld. They're not gonna be anything of a industrial or capacity, but they are smaller, but certainly they could,
But
you
it's
know.
what they'll be using during the summer if we enact this ban, yes.
Our Public Works?
Yeah.
Yes, and it's what they use during the winter as well. Like they were digging out a plant today and they were using it, so.
To clean the sidewalk or
Mhm.
whatever. Since we're continuing the conversation on the restriction, maybe we could talk about gathering information for our landscaper for registration like we talked about. I can even like call another town to see what ordinance they have in place, so we can maybe start just putting a registration in for landscapers, so we have a way to communicate with them, maybe offer incentives down the road or, and then, like I said to you earlier, we know who's coming into town, you know.
It's a good idea.
We have a similar registration process for tree contractors now as a result of the revised tree ordinance, so.
Yeah, so we could see what town would just do something like that too. Okay, motion to adjourn?